Welcome back to Dev Diaries. It's time for Dev Diary 114. That's a lot of Dev Diaries already. Then again, the game has just celebrated its 2-year anniversary. So, congratulations to you, viewer, if you've been playing for that long. I have, and it's been a journey seeing the game develop so far. But that's why we have these Dev Diaries, so that we don't have to dwell too much on the past and look forwards towards the future. And the future is very distant in this particular case because we're going to be talking about distant stars 114, space creatures, strategic resources, and experimental subspace navigation. So, as you may know, in the game, there is a bunch of neutral creatures. There is things like space amoebas, janky, crystallines, and whatnot. And in the distant stars update, there is going to be a whole bunch of stuff. Quick note for today, however, as well, everything we're going to be mentioning is in the free 2.1 Niven update, not necessarily part of Distant Stars, but I'm sure that considering how things have been going in the past, that there is going to be some sort of element in extension to what we're going to be discussing today, part of the update. But we shall see how that goes. Anyway, space creature research, things like amoeba, things like crystallines, things like space cows and whatnot, are going to have a little bit of a change. A small change, but it's still going to add a lot of different types of flavor to their existence. First of all, we are going to be seeing not so much a kill 'em all, take their research sort of approach. No, we're going to be seeing, upon first contact, a new sort of event dialogue. And this event dialogue will confine the following options. The option to hunt the neutral creatures in questions, and basically you will get a permanent bonus damage towards this kind of space creature, and apparently also a bunch of resources if you kill them. So if you want to go on to the Great Hunt, and this feels good with your role-playing scenarios, then that is definitely something you want to keep in mind. Then there is research, which is apparently the closest one to what we currently have. For instance, if you jump into a system that has some of these creatures in them, you generally are able to research them. Now, this is still going to be in the game. So you unlock a special project, you get detailed research, and you'll be getting a certain amount of reward in terms of technology, or maybe permanent buffs on your empire, something that you already have. For instance, the, if I want to say the crystallines, oh no, it's actually the space amoeba. They can give you a bonus in ship evasion or ship sublight speeds, with the crystallines giving you a potential bonus to energy output and whatnot. So there's quite a lot of different things to go in. These currently are attached to your ethics as well, so expect that to kind of remain the same. Then is the most fascinating of the three. Pacification, an expensive special project that allows you to turn space creatures non-hostile. Now this is actually rather interesting, allowing yourself to be able to coexist with some of these space creatures is rather strategically interesting, because you can lure other empires into combat together with these space creatures and maybe get a bonus on that. Some of these space creatures are relatively strong. The hunters, for instance, from the space amoebas, I think go up to 4.5k. So using them in order to fight other empires is definitely something that is interesting. You'll be able to unlock research, special components, or weapons that they use. Not certain space creatures are not pacifiable, like the mining drones, etc. Still very interesting. I'm really interested to see how this is going to go in terms of special components, whether or not it's still like flagella craft and stuff like that, or energy siphoning. Who knows? Still very interesting to see, and definitely expect a video on this once this goes live. Then there is the discovery of strategic resources. Now, strategic resources is a little bit interesting. In the past, if you would find strategic resources, you did not know that you had them until you had the appropriate technology to it, which means that you could explore and eventually get the research tech and then suddenly discover that you had a ton of those resources already with on orbital stations, which according to the developers is not particularly rewarding or strategic. So they're changing the strategic resource that they're always visible from the start, and you will get an event informing when you have a science ship that discovers a new strategic resource for the first time. This by itself is rather cool because it allows you to do a little bit more strategic stuff. You ran to crystals for those energy weapons, the Teldar crystals for those kinetic weapons, or gargantuan ore for explosive missiles and whatnot. So this is rather interesting. Now, some strategic resources will be exploitable immediately, and some of them will require technology. So that really depends on, you found them, therefore you can probably research them. But probably very similar to, say, Betharian stone or alien pets, where if you have them within your empire, or if you colonize the planet with them on it, you will get access to the technology, and if you do not, well, then obviously you don't have access to that technology. They've removed their tendency to spawn in large clumps in certain areas of space. This was a really big feature back in the 1.0 days, or at least the 1.0 to 2.0, where they were very much inclined to say, hey, this sector of space is going to have this resource, and this sector of space is going to have this resource. This is all going to be changed up. And it's kind of annoying, to be honest, because that kind of made it possible for you to be super strong with trading with other empires, giving you large amount of resources in order to get access to these materials. So this is potentially no longer the case. So you'll need to basically claim systems before other people do, and you will be no longer assured that others of its type are nearby. I'm kind of conflicted on this, basically because of the stuff that I mentioned earlier about being able to trade all this stuff. Yeah, that's very, very unfortunate. And then we're going to be talking about something that some people have requested in a certain way. It's called the Experimental Subspace Navigation, and it's kind of a replacement for warp travel. And it's only available for science ships. Basically, it's a special order, very similar to how jump drive works, and basically you'll get it in the mid-game, and allows science ships to travel to any system that you have any level of intel on, obviously if it is within range. Now, that ship will go missing in action for a little while, and then it will pop up in that system. So, for instance, if you're playing a, say, Spiral Arm Galaxy, and you are completely and totally pinned in between other empires, and you can no longer go anywhere, in the mid-game, all of a sudden, your science ships will be able to use this subspace navigation system to jump to another arm to continue doing exploration there, just to keep the mid-game a little bit more interesting. And that's pretty much what this feels like. An upgrade to the mid-game to allow continuous exploration and keep things interesting, something that the base game was very weak at. The mid-game is still very much lacking, so that right there is something that this should alleviate a little bit. That in addition of the, well, I want to say hundreds, but that number is not yet to be confirmed, a large amount of new anomalies that will pop up throughout the game, at least within Distant Stars, allows you to get a bunch of more events in systems and keep the game a little bit more interesting whilst you're also at war, or at least when you're blocked in. So if you have a spawn and you find yourself on one side with a fallen empire, and on the other side also fallen empire, this should alleviate that just a little bit. There are a couple of special systems, such as the L cluster. I really like how they're saying certain special systems, such as the L cluster, implying there is more like this, that you will not be able to travel to using this method. And of course, this, like I mentioned, this will become available somewhere during the mid-game. So, let's talk about next week. Depth Diaries, not going to happen next week, but PDXCon is next week. I'll be going out there on Thursday and then enjoy my time over there and see whether or not I can get my hands on Distant Stars, and maybe even do a little bit of recording for a, well, let's not give it the term world premiere preview, but a preview nonetheless, and that would be really cool. Maybe we'll also talk about any sort of new stuff that is coming out of PDS, and I'm really looking forward to new games coming out there, because it's been 2 years since the release of Stellaris, so it's time for them to announce a new game, and maybe, well, if it's good enough, we will definitely take a look at that and continuously play it, because, well, right now, in terms of subscribers and all that stuff, we're looking pretty good. You know, we're getting up towards that 75k, but I want to wrestle out that 100k. And, you know, even though Stellaris is super popular, I do feel that I need a little bit more. In addition, I've kind of alluded to this in the past during some of my playthroughs. I'm looking to do a couple more classic games as well. Stuff like Homeworld. I'm definitely interested in taking a look at the Homeworld series once again. I know it's relatively old, but the remaster does, well, give it a little bit of polish, and I would like your feedback below to see if you're interested to see that as well. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Next week, we're going to be talking, well, obviously about PDXCon, so we'll see you there. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.